Billionaire sees Waitress. Crying in rain. What he does next. Shocked everyone. What if one moment of unexpected kindness could change two lives forever? On a cold November evening in downtown Chicago, 42-year-old James Mitchell sat in his luxury sedan, watching raindrops race down the tinted windows. The successful real estate mogul had just left another board meeting, his mind still buzzing with numbers and negotiations. But something outside caught his attention. A young woman in a faded diner uniform standing under a broken streetlight, tears streaming down her face as freely as the rain soaking through her thin jacket. Lisa Chen, 34 and exhausted from pulling double shifts at Murphy's Diner, clutched a crumpled envelope in her trembling hands. She'd just received news that would shatter everything she'd worked for. The rain seemed to echo her despair, each drop a reminder of how alone she felt in this vast city. James found himself unable to look away. Something about her quiet dignity in the face of obvious heartbreak stirred something deep within him he'd almost forgotten existed. "Where are you watching from tonight?" Lisa had been working at Murphy's Diner for 3 years, ever since she'd moved to Chicago to care for her aging father, Robert. The small restaurant on the corner of 5th and Main wasn't much to look at, but it had become her second home. Her co-workers were like family, and the regular customers knew her name. She'd saved every penny, dreaming of the day she could open her own little cafe, a place where people could find comfort in both good food and genuine conversation. Her father, Robert, a retired school teacher, had raised her alone after her mother passed when Lisa was just 12. Now, at 71, he was battling early-stage dementia, and the medical bills were mounting faster than Lisa could keep up. She'd been managing his care while working 60-hour weeks, but she never complained. Robert had sacrificed everything to give her a good education, and now it was her turn to take care of him. The letter she'd received that afternoon changed everything. The landlord was selling their small apartment building, and all tenants had 30 days to move out. With Chicago's rising rent prices and her father's medical expenses, finding a new place seemed impossible. She'd already drained her savings account and maxed out her credit cards paying for his medications. James, meanwhile, had built his empire from nothing. At 18, he'd lost both parents in a car accident and had inherited only debt. He'd worked construction during the day and attended community college at night, slowly building his way up through sheer determination. Now, 24 years later, he owned half the commercial real estate in downtown Chicago. But success had come at a cost. He'd grown distant from people, surrounding himself with lawyers, accountants, and business associates who saw him as nothing more than a profitable connection. Tonight, something was different. As he watched Lisa standing in the rain, clutching that letter like it contained her entire world, he saw something in her that reminded him of his younger self, that desperate need to keep fighting even when everything seemed hopeless. The rain intensified, and Lisa finally looked up at the dark sky, as if asking it for answers it couldn't give. That's when she noticed the expensive car idling across the street, its driver watching her through the darkness. James watched as Lisa tried to shield the letter from the rain, her shoulders shaking. Whether from cold or emotion, he couldn't tell. Something about her reminded him of his own mother, who'd worked 3 jobs to keep their family afloat before the accident. His mother had that same quiet strength, that same dignity in the face of hardship. Unable to sit still any longer, James stepped out of his car. The rain immediately soaked through his expensive suit, but he didn't care. As he approached, Lisa looked up with startled eyes, clearly wondering why a stranger in a $1,000 suit would be walking toward her in this weather. "Excuse me," James said gently, his voice barely audible over the rain. "I'm sorry to bother you, but you look like you could use somewhere dry to stand. There's a coffee shop just around the corner that stays open late." Lisa wiped her eyes quickly, embarrassed to be caught in such a vulnerable moment. "I'm fine, thank you. I was just heading home." Her voice was steady, but James could hear the exhaustion beneath it. "I don't mean to intrude," he continued, But I saw you reading that letter, and you looked like you'd received some difficult news. Sometimes it helps to talk to a stranger." For a moment, Lisa studied his face. There was something genuine in his eyes, a kindness that didn't match his expensive appearance. Against her better judgment, she found herself nodding. "I suppose a cup of coffee wouldn't hurt." They walked to Maria's Cafe, a small 24-hour place that catered to late-shift workers and insomniacs. As they settled into a corner booth, Lisa found herself opening up about her father's condition and their housing situation. James listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding with understanding. 30 days, Lisa said, staring into her coffee cup. "I've been looking at apartments online, but everything decent costs twice what I'm paying now. And with Dad's medical appointments, I can't move too far from his doctor's." What she didn't tell James was that she'd already called every family friend and distant relative, hoping someone might help. The few responses she'd received were polite but firm. Everyone had their own struggles. If this moment of unexpected kindness touched your heart, please give the video a thumbs up. James felt something shift inside his chest as he watched this young woman trying so hard to hold everything together. He recognized that look. He'd worn it himself years ago. "Lisa," he said quietly, "what if I told you there might be another way?" Lisa looked up sharply, suspicion flickering across her features. She'd learned to be wary of offers that seemed too good to be true. "I appreciate the thought, but I don't accept charity. I've always worked for what I have." James held up his hands. "I respect that. I'm not talking about charity. I'm talking about opportunity." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I own several commercial properties downtown, including some mixed-use buildings with residential apartments above retail spaces. I've been looking for someone to manage one of them. Someone trustworthy, hardworking, with real people skills." "I don't understand," Lisa said, her heart beginning to race. "The position comes with a 2-bedroom apartment on the 3rd floor," James continued. "Rent-free plus a salary. The building has elevator access and there's a medical center just 2 blocks away. It would mean leaving the diner, but—" Lisa's eyes filled with tears again. But this time they weren't tears of despair. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you help someone you don't even know?" James looked down at his hands, memories flooding back. 24 years ago, I was sleeping in my car and showering at the YMCA. I just lost my parents and I was about to lose everything else. A man named Frank Kowalski owned a small construction company. He found me trying to sleep in the parking lot behind his office. James's voice grew soft. "Frank didn't just give me a job, he gave me a chance to rebuild my life. He said something I'll never forget. 'Son, we're all just one bad day away from needing help, and one good deed away from finding hope.'" Lisa stared at him, seeing him differently now. "What happened to Frank?" "He passed away 5 years ago. I spoke at his funeral." James met her eyes. "I've been successful for a long time now, but I've forgotten what Frank taught me. Watching you tonight, seeing your strength and determination. It reminded me that success without compassion is just expensive emptiness." The weight of possibility settled between them. Lisa thought about her father, about the medicine he needed, about the dignity of having a real home again. There would be responsibilities, James continued. Collecting rent, coordinating maintenance, and being available for tenant emergencies. It's real work. "I'm not afraid of work," Lisa said firmly. "Have you ever faced a moment when a stranger's kindness changed everything? Let us know in the comments." But even as hope bloomed in her chest, Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that this was too good to be true. What wasn't he telling her? James reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card, sliding it across the table. Lisa's eyes widened. As she read, Mitchell Development Group, James Mitchell, CEO. She'd seen his name in the newspaper's business section, heard people at the diner talking about his latest projects. She started, then stopped, overwhelmed. "I waited on you once, about 6 months ago. You came into Murphy's with some business associates. You left a $20 tip on a $12 meal. James smiled, remembering. You made sure my coffee cup never went empty, and you recommended the apple pie. You were kind to an old man at the next table who was counting quarters to pay for his soup. Mr. Patterson, Lisa said softly. He comes in every Tuesday. His Social Security doesn't stretch far, so sometimes She trailed off, realizing she was about to admit to occasionally paying for customers' meals from her own tips. So, sometimes you cover the difference, James finished. I saw you slip the money to your manager when you thought no one was looking. Lisa's cheeks flushed. He reminds me of my dad. That's exactly why I know this isn't charity, Lisa. This is me recognizing someone who understands what really matters. James leaned forward. The building I'm talking about isn't just an investment property to me. It was Frank Kowalski's first apartment building. He left it to me when he died, and I've been struggling with what to do with it. It needs someone who'll care about the tenants the way Frank cared about people. The revelation hit Lisa like a wave. This wasn't random kindness. It was the universe coming full circle. When would you need an answer? Take your time, James said. But I should mention, the current property manager is retiring at the end of this month. If you're interested, you could start immediately. Your father would have access to the building's medical alert system, and there's a small community room where he could socialize with other residents. Lisa closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the decision. When she opened them, James was watching her with patient understanding. I need to discuss this with my father, she said finally. But James, Mr. Mitchell, thank you, even if I say no. Thank you for reminding me that good people still exist. If you've been enjoying this story of unexpected kindness, subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming tales. As they prepared to leave the cafe, Lisa realized that sometimes miracles come disguised as ordinary encounters between strangers in the rain. 3 weeks later, Lisa stood in the spacious apartment that was now home, watching her father, Robert, arrange his books on the built-in shelves. The afternoon sunlight streamed through large windows, illuminating his face as he hummed an old tune she remembered from childhood. His confusion seemed less frequent here, perhaps because he felt secure again, or maybe because he had a purpose. He'd volunteered to help other residents with their correspondence and had already become the building's unofficial librarian. Lisa, dear, Robert called from the living room. Mrs. Chen from 2B brought us some homemade soup. She says it's her grandmother's recipe. He paused, looking confused for a moment. Chen, that's our name too, isn't it? Yes, Dad, Lisa said gently, kissing his forehead. That's our name. The transition hadn't been without challenges. Learning to manage a 12-unit building while caring for her father required careful coordination, but James had been patient, offering guidance without being overbearing. The previous property manager, Mrs. Rodriguez, had stayed an extra week to show Lisa the ropes, and the tenants had welcomed her warmly. What surprised Lisa most was how naturally everything fell into place. The building's residents weren't just tenants, they were neighbors, who looked out for each other. Mr. Patterson, from the diner, had even moved into a ground-floor unit after James quietly arranged a rent. Adjustment that worked with his fixed income, James had kept. His word about everything being legitimate work. Lisa earned her salary by handling maintenance requests, mediating neighbor disputes, and organizing the monthly building meetings. But more than that, she'd found her calling. The little community room had become a gathering place where residents shared meals, played cards, and celebrated birthdays. One evening, as Lisa was locking up the community room after a birthday party for one of the elderly residents, she found James waiting in the lobby. He'd been checking on the building regularly, but always professionally, never making her feel like she owed him anything beyond good work. "How are you settling in?" he asked. "It feels like home," Lisa said simply. "Dad has made friends. I love what I'm doing, and I'm actually saving money for the first time in years." She paused. "I keep thinking I should thank you, but I know you don't want gratitude." "You're right," James said with a smile. "But I'll accept friendship," Lisa laughed. "Frank would be proud of you, you know. You didn't just give me a job. You gave me back my hope. As James walked toward the exit, he turned back. "Lisa, there's something you should know. I'm planning to renovate the empty storefront on the ground floor. I was thinking it might make a perfect cafe. Are you interested in a business partnership?" Lisa's eyes lit up with the same hope that had carried her through the rain 3 weeks ago, except now it felt like a promise she could actually keep. If you enjoyed this story of how one moment of kindness created a ripple effect of hope, please remember to like this video, leave a comment sharing your thoughts about unexpected acts of kindness, and subscribe for more heartwarming stories. Thank you for joining us on this journey of discovering that sometimes the most beautiful changes begin with the simplest gestures of human compassion.